going on, guys? K-Dub here with another episode of Crypto Zombie. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a great day today. Hope you guys have been enjoying yourselves. We did have a wonderful 3-day weekend over here if you're in the United States, but we have so much to talk about today because there were a lot of things that have happened previously. Obviously, we have the Ethereum ETF. We have Donald Trump now apparently being pro-crypto, but not just that. There's something going on in the charts right now that we need to talk about, and this is actually applicable to whether you are holding altcoins right now or you're wondering when the next Bitcoin move is going to be. Now, we will talk about that a little bit later in the video. Just to show you, though, we have been in this upwards trend, and this 21 exponential has been supporting us quite nicely. Now, the thing that everyone's a little bit worried about is we did have this sort of pennant forming, right? And if we have a look, it does appear that this could have been a potential fake out, and now currently we have this upwards trend, right? But we're finding resistance right there. So there are people that are worried that maybe the price is going to fall a little bit lower. Now, I'm just going to say right now, guys, that if we have a look, we are now starting to put in what I would say to be a constructive pattern, right? Whereas we had a downwards trend here, we're now putting an upwards trend, and we broke and held and broke out of this falling wedge pattern. So basically, in a nutshell, you're probably wondering, where am I going with this? Well, what I am saying is you better get ready because there's about to be a massively explosive move for Bitcoin quite soon. And also, there is something very specific that we're watching for the altcoins, and this is going to signal exactly when we're going to have that massive altcoin rally, and it could be sooner than most people think, but you don't want to miss it because obviously once this happens, it happens very quickly. I also want to talk about a few interesting things as well. And by the way, in the previous video that I made, some people again are thinking like I'm anti-altcoins. No, that's not the case. It's just that I mostly have a Bitcoin allocation, but some of the coins, for example, swarm markets, right? We talked about this. We had an interview on the channel, you know, just a couple days ago. This was down in the 50-cent range, and now it's up at around 86 cents. And I personally think this thing can go to $10. So just to throw this out there, no, guys, I am not bearish or I'm not against altcoins. I'm just very selective on the ones that I get into. And also, this guy right here, do you recognize this guy's face? You might not, but if you do, 11 years ago, you would not believe what this guy predicted. And I bet you everybody was laughing at what he had to say, and you have to hear about how basically what he said is kind of playing out, and this kind of leads into the massive price action that we could be seeing for Bitcoin and why these catalysts specifically could actually send Bitcoin much higher than most people are anticipating. So I don't know if you got all that, but there's a lot to go over today. And also, we do actually have a massive deal going on over on LeveX. I'm not just talking about the $15,000 tournament, the 95% fee backs, 10% reduced fees, cash back, also $500,000 in total rewards. But what we will be doing, guys, is if you sign up using my link below in LeveX, we are going to be doing a $5,000 giveaway for 5 people. So it's $1,000 per person, and all you guys got to do is basically just sign up using the link below in LeveX and then drop your Twitter handle below. So just type in LeveX, your Twitter handle, make sure you're signed up, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a random comment picker over here. This is going to be next week. And then obviously if you guys are following me on Twitter, which is literally at the Crypto Zombie, make sure you're following the official Twitter. We will be doing that giveaway. So sign up for LeveX, drop below in the comments LeveX with your Twitter handle. Follow me on Twitter and I will get back to you and we will do that drawing live. So if that sounds good to you, you know what to do. If you are not subscribed, definitely consider it. So let's start with this tweet over on Twitter. Speaking of, we have Ollie Chart saying Bitcoin has encountered minimal resistance. The key supply zone to watch is around 70,180 to 70,600, where there were over 450,000 addresses that acquired 273,000 Bitcoin with strong support levels. So the odds are in fact in favor of the bulls. And again, I told you I will go over some key levels to watch, but I'm telling you, price is about to get pretty crazy pretty soon. I would say within the next week, possibly even by this time next week. So obviously, I'm sure you guys have all seen this by now, but Donald Trump has come out very recently. Now, all of a sudden, he's completely pro-crypto. I believe, you know, he's had a lot of different advisors. You have Vivek Ramaswamy, right, as well. He had stopped, he pulled out of the race, but now he's supporting Donald Trump. So I'm thinking he's hearing a lot about, you know, how this sort of could be the future. But if you didn't see this clip, I'll play it real quick, but we got a lot more to talk about.
I will ensure that the future of crypto and the future of Bitcoin will be made in the USA not driven overseas. I will support the right to self-custody to the nation's 50 million crypto holders. I say this with your vote. I will keep Elizabeth Warren and her goons away from your Bitcoin. And I will never allow the creation of a central bank digital currency.
Also, his post over on Truth Social. I am very positive and open-minded to cryptocurrency companies and all things related to this new and burgeoning industry. Our country must be the leader in the field. There is no second place. Crooked Joe Biden, on the other hand, the worst president in the history of our country, wants it to die a slow and painful death. That will never happen with me. Now, obviously, before we get into it, I am a very single-issue voter, especially when it comes to a lot of these things, so I don't really take sides specifically. In fact, to be honest with you, I don't want to say, I don't care necessarily who wins or who doesn't win. Obviously, I do, but I've always sort of just taken things into my own hands, which is kind of a very crypto ethos, a very Bitcoin ethos, which is why, not your keys, not your coins. I've always just held my own self-custody. I don't care about the ETFs. I think the ETFs will help with price, but for me personally, I still hold on self-custody. That's what I believe in. But at the end of the day, guys, you cannot deny that this has shaken a lot of things up recently. In fact, I'm going to get to an interesting poll in just a bit. But even, saying that, he's going to commute the sentence for Ross Ulbricht, that's a possibility. That would be nice for him. And Caitlyn Jenner is also coming out. Make America great again. Yeah, she's all of a sudden super crypto. We cannot rely simply on government-backed currencies, etc. Although, there is this Jenner coin that's kind of been going around. But in all sincerity, I mean, that's like tabloid type media stuff. But listen to this survey. So this came from Grayscale, and there were about almost 1,800 people over the age of 18 who are intending to vote in this election. And it highlighted the importance of crypto voters. So listen to what this survey found out. 73% of the individuals believe that the presidential candidates should have an informed perspective on innovative technologies like cryptocurrency and AI. And 1 in 3 U.S. voters said that they would consider a political candidate's position on cryptocurrency before voting. And not to mention, we did have the FIT 21 bill that passed, and that was about 66% that said in favor of yes. So now it's not only we're just seeing it be a Republican thing, you're actually starting to see some of the Democrats who really, the Democratic Party was pretty anti-crypto. I mean, that's kind of what we've been seeing for the past 4 years. And now some of them are even being swayed. So, now you're seeing this sort of younger generation, right? You're seeing the interest of, millennials or Gen Z or younger that are kind of pushing back and being like, hey, you're going to lose these younger votes if you're not actually paying attention. And here's the interesting thing. Now, some people might say, oh, well, it's just a bunch of smoke and mirrors. It's a lot of hot air. These politicians, they'll just say whatever to get the vote. Hey, look, I'm not going to deny. Obviously, that happens a lot. And you got to take everything any of these guys say with a grain of salt. However, Donald Trump apparently, this is not, just take this, like I said, with a grain of salt, but is looking to solve America's national debt once reelected. Now, where is this coming from? Well, David Bailey, who is the CEO of Bitcoin Magazine, and he's a crypto advisor to Trump's campaign, has actually revealed that when he had first met Trump recently and signed on, Trump apparently asked him if Bitcoin could help tackle the $35 trillion debt. Hint, hint, I mean, at the end of the day, could it potentially? Will it? Probably not, because the Fed is just going to print everything anyway. That's what they do. In fact, stick around, because Jeff Booth is going to go into why it doesn't even make sense, really, to price Bitcoin in dollars. You know what? I'm getting ahead of myself. Back to the Trump story. So Bailey, who is advising Trump, he said, although at the time, originally, he wasn't ready to discuss that with him, he has since been working with Trump to develop a pro-crypto policy. And if you are interested, this was a very big thing, this FIT 21. This is the first real sort of crypto regulation that we're seeing in the United States. You had Representative French Hill, and he was kind of making a little bit of a statement on how we kind of need this.
Well, I'm glad to see President Trump's for innovation in the United States. We want the U.S. to be a leader in financial technology, just like we have in other forms of technology, particularly as we look at the future of the internet, Web3, and blockchain. He also said that he was not supportive of a U.S. Central bank digital currency, which I think is a good position. I prefer the private sector leading in payments, and that's why we're still working on a payment stablecoin bill that will let the private sector here lead in that manner on a dollar-backed payment stablecoin.
It's interesting just to see even former President Trump change gears on this, because he was a skeptic originally. Were you a skeptic originally too?
Well, I've always said that I think blockchain has tremendous ability to take out frictional costs in financial services and other forms of the economy. And I think that the concept of a tokenized payment through a payment stablecoin makes sense inside certain applications on a blockchain. But I am arguing that the U.S. needs the right regulatory framework for digital assets so that venture capitalists, innovators, investors, and consumers can feel like we've got the right regime for innovation in the future of blockchain and Web3 innovation.
I mean, they're even potentially talking about these stable coins now, right? So I think, even though I tend to ramble on these videos, if you guys have been watching me, I think you know what you're in for with these type of videos. I just like to share what I'm looking at. But I think the writing is on the wall right here, and all the things that we've been saying for all of these years about how you're not going to stop Bitcoin, you're not going to stop cryptocurrency. It's going to be in everyone's portfolio, and honestly, not even just in their portfolio. It's going to eventually be a part of everyday life. The world is moving digital. If you think about it, Bitcoin is 15 years old. Any child right now, 15 years or younger, is going to be born in a world of Bitcoin. That's all. Literally, Bitcoin will have always existed, right? That's kind of crazy when you think about that. And you're also not just seeing the fact of the ETF drawing in, these institutions or individuals who wouldn't get involved, but it also keeps signaling more and more to these companies like, hey, maybe we should put this on the balance sheet. Maybe it could help us fight inflation. You have NASDAQ listed US giant company announced that it purchased a large amount of Bitcoin. This is American health technology company, Semler Scientific. They purchased 581 Bitcoin for $40 million. So the company stated that it has also started to accept Bitcoin as a reserve asset. I mean, can you imagine back in 2017 when we were originally talking about this stuff, the idea of it, it was just a bunch of hot air, right? It didn't even exist. Like, what's backing it? It's just this fake internet money, and now it's actually backing these reserves as an asset for these businesses. It's pretty incredible. And when you start thinking about the doors that the ETF have opened, and you start in your mind playing out some of these numbers, you realize that these crazy predictions are not as wild as you thought they were originally. For example, just here's a few. And here are some, the catalyst being the ETF. But listen, so according to the Motley Fool data, about 700 professional investment firms, including the likes of Millennium Management, Morgan Stanley, and Bracebridge Capital, own around $5 billion worth of spot Bitcoin ETFs, demonstrating the perceived importance of including Bitcoin in their portfolios. They say if recent studies are anything to go by, the ideal exposure is about 5%, with institutional investors managing nearly $130 trillion in assets. So 5%. And remember, we were just doing this math based on, let's say they allocate 0.5% or 1%. We're seeing these guys come in with 5% now. So if you look at the way these numbers are playing out, Bitcoin's market cap could get above $7 trillion from around 1.35, which would put Bitcoin at around $400,000 per coin. Now, you want to go even higher, right? That's a crazy case as is, but you have ARK Invest suggesting that 5% might actually be too conservative, saying it should be closer to about 19%, in which that case, the market cap would be $25 trillion, and that would put Bitcoin at $1.3 million per coin. So I think, just to summarize what I was trying to say in my previous video, is everyone is trying to catch these meme coins or these altcoins or these next 100 X's or whatever. And I understand Bitcoin's getting expensive, all right, for the average person. But if you believe that there's a possibility that ARK could even be somewhat correct in their $1.3 million assessment, then if you just simply think about buying one Bitcoin, which I know that's a lot of money, but you can always, dollar cost average, or well, don't do what I did. I mean, I basically let my house go into foreclosure and threw everything into Bitcoin, but that's obviously not a realistic strategy. But my point is there's always a way. There's something you could do. You can work extra, you can sell things, and try to get to that one Bitcoin, because they say, oh, that's not life-changing money. $1.3 million is not life-changing money? I mean, could you live off 1.3 for the rest of your life? I mean, with inflation, I don't know necessarily, but I would I wouldn't say it's not life-changing. I mean, you could pay off your mortgage. You could probably live for several years. You could invest and start a new business, right? So I don't know. When you think about owning one Bitcoin, a lot of the people that say, oh, like, it's not going to make me enough money, you're not really looking at it the right way. And I will get to Jeff Booth in a minute, but how crazy is it that 11 years ago, you had this analyst predicting that Bitcoin could go to $500,000 and be the world reserve currency? So it's pretty interesting when you think about this. And, 11 years ago, imagine how crazy this guy sounded. Doesn't sound so crazy today.
So that's why I think we are right there. We have a long way to go in the growth of Bitcoin. And let's now take a look at some possible future valuations. Global hedge funds, for example, they have around $2.3 trillion under management, a part of which is cash. So we can imagine they might diversify just 1% into Bitcoin. Should that happen, according to my calculations, the Bitcoin price should rise to over $1,000 for one Bitcoin. Argentina, there's about $50 billion worth of paper money circulating, and I do mean dollars, so greenbacks circulating in Argentina. Should the Argentines one day decide, or maybe over time decide to switch that into Bitcoin, Bitcoin prices will rise to over $2,000 per Bitcoin. Gold bugs. Gold is money, but Bitcoin is money too, and it has some interesting characteristics. So maybe in the future, people that own gold today might want to divest just 1% into Bitcoin, in which case we can see prices rise to over $3,500 for a Bitcoin. And then if we've arrived there, I mean, why wouldn't it just keep continuing? I don't see why not, because the more people get involved, the stronger the network becomes, the more entrepreneurs that are there to make things very easy so that even grandmothers can start using it, etc. So let's continue our possible projections. We know that the global shadow economy, for example, has a size of around $15 trillion. This is 2012. If we assume that the volume of Bitcoin today would rise to something equal to that of the shadow economy, so basically the black market would become a Bitcoin-based or a cryptocurrency-based black market. And if I assume then that the Bitcoin price would rise equally so, which we can talk about whether that's a good idea, then Bitcoin prices would rise to around $160,000 for a Bitcoin. Should Bitcoin actually become the new gold? People talk about Bitcoin like gold 2.0, the new gold. They actually use that phrase quite loosely these days. If this really is the case, we know that there's around 155,000 tons of above ground gold. These are the most conservative estimates I could find, the James Turk estimates, and multiply that with the gold price. Total valuation is around $7.2 trillion. So if Bitcoin really does become the new gold, one Bitcoin should be worth around $340,000. I mean, imagine the implication. You own 3 Bitcoins today, and that makes you a millionaire tomorrow. You own 3,000 Bitcoins and you're on your way to become a billionaire. I mean, so you can see the kind of risk-reward ratio we are talking about. And then finally, I mean, Bitcoin is the new gold. The black market is using Bitcoin. Why wouldn't Bitcoin become the new world reserve currency? And then based on, again, the most conservative numbers I could find, what I come up with is a Bitcoin price a little over $500,000 for one Bitcoin. So very exciting indeed. Again, that's why I think the risk-reward ratio of Bitcoin is extraordinary. Everybody should own just a few Bitcoins, even if it's just a tiny percentage.
So if you guys believe in something like, for example, the Bitcoin power law, you can kind of see how this thing can exponentially get crazy over time. This video has some music that plays over it. I'm not sure if it's copyright, but when you really think about something, for example, like the Lindy effect, the idea that if something has existed for a certain amount of time, the idea that it would exist for that amount of time is, very likely. Also, when you're dealing with these S-curves of technologies, it really doesn't seem insane to think of ourselves potentially, at the sort of bottom to mid area, moving up to the top of that S curve. And if you actually do the Bitcoin power, law like this, then yeah, I mean, 1.3 million, maybe we're not going to get it as soon as ARK says, but a $1 million Bitcoin potentially by the year 2036. So basically in about 12 more years. I don't know, guys. It seems like a pretty good deal to me. So let's hop in. Let's have a look super quick at this TA right here. Obviously, we are, there's a lot of stuff I just keep repeating. It's not much has changed. We're still super in the green here, being supported by the major moving averages. Also, if you look right here, we did have this channel, this parallel channel, and it honestly looks like we had a beautiful test down there. That would have been an amazing opportunity if you guys were longing, which, by the way, side note, if you guys actually have checked out Metasignals, by the way, absolutely called that as well. And we did just actually get over 1,000 minted, so there's 999 remaining if you guys are interested, or if you just want to do, you want to try the monthly or the annual trial, you could check that below. Make sure that you guys enter the code ZOMBIE though right here if you guys want to get that 20% discount. And by the way, that discount is for life, so you get a lifetime discount. But yeah, shout out to Metasignals on that one. But, getting back to this, yeah, and now it does appear that we may be above that area. So could we come down and retest the heart line? Well, that's usually what happens, right? For example, fake out down here, test the bottom down here. Maybe we come down and test the heart line. Could Bitcoin go down to 65? Sure, but I think that would be an absolute buy, because what we're doing is we are now coming up between the previous top, and we have this moving average on the pi cycle indicator. And yes, we can dance around this average, the bottom to the top, but for the most part, this average is going to be pushing us up. The momentum also, having this green dot here, yeah, okay, so we have a little bit, you could say the RSI is oversold, whatever, but RSI can stay oversold for a very, very long time. And once we get above this level, the next area of interest is around 85,000. And the other cool thing about that is it coincides perfectly with the Fibonacci retracement. If we actually pull this down right here from top to bottom, right, and we look at where the next level is, the 1.618 is about 84,678, and this level is about 85,900. So it's saying that the next move for Bitcoin, if we are to break and hold above, roughly around 69K even, give or take, then yeah, the next move is right around 85 to 87,000. And this is also coinciding with the dollar depreciating, the dollar falling down, right? And yeah, so basically, I guess this is where we want to end right here. And this might be a little woo-woo, maybe it's a little out there for you guys, Jeff Booth. A little philosophical, a little too Bitcoin maxi. But when you really think about it, when it comes down to pricing things in Bitcoin, when you know that the government is just going to print and print and print, and you know that this debt could possibly double literally within 5 years, or even faster at the rate they've been going, it almost makes it not even make sense to even price things in dollars anymore. And just thinking about holding Bitcoin, it's funny, because if you own Bitcoin, you don't experience long-term inflation. If you hold dollars, things are getting more and more and more and more expensive, right? But if you hold Bitcoin, things are getting more and more and more and more cheap. Now, yes, of course, there's the fluctuations in the mid cycles, but just as saying, if you had 100 Bitcoin, I know that's a lot of Bitcoin, but if you had 100 Bitcoin back in, 2009, what was 100 Bitcoin worth? I don't know, $1 maybe? I don't know, $1, right? So it would have taken a lot of Bitcoin, like Laszlo's Pizza, right? He had to spend 10,000, 20,000, whatever it was, Bitcoin to buy some pizzas, whereas now you could buy a pizza for 0.000000. So if you hold Bitcoin, inflation really doesn't exist, right? It only exists when you hold dollars. And I just want to kind of end it on here. I love this. It's a little bit long, but stick around. I think he makes some really good points. So this is what Jeff Booth had to say.
But it's very hard to imagine things getting exponentially cheaper. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, and that's why I think this one in particular. What you said. I've read your book. I've talked to you many times. We're friends, and the penny hasn't totally dropped. I remember being on Peter McCormick's show, and I think for the fourth time, and talked for years. And when the penny finally dropped for him, and so but it just shows you how much. Every single time somebody prices Bitcoin in their US dollars and their token, it tells you they don't get it. Every time they say Bitcoin is going up, it tells you they don't get it. Because here's what the world wealth looks like today. About 900 trillion in total global wealth, 400 trillion of debt. The 400 trillion is already insolvent. It would take 12,873,000 years to pay back that debt. It's already completely insolvent. Yet every person playing within that game is saying, I'm going to get trapped in the system and all my labor and capital is going to get captured as this gets more and more insolvent, because it's already insolvent. And so they're measuring from that system. So today, if you did 900 trillion divided by 21 million, or you could divide it by whatever you want for lost coins, you would get the implied value of each Bitcoin today if it stays decentralized and secure. That is the value based on today's purchasing power of Bitcoin. But there's two things that if you're measuring through that system, you're going to get really confused about. In 5 years, that 900 trillion will not be 900 trillion. It'll be something like 2 quadrillion. So it'll more than double in the next 5 years, I suspect, because it has to, because of the amount of monetary easing to be able to keep that system solvent, especially with how fast technology is moving the other way. We'll have to massively increase the amount of money supply, massively. So let's use 2 quadrillion. At that time, so 5 years from now, then that 46 million per Bitcoin today would turn into 92 million per Bitcoin tomorrow. And it hasn't gone up. Okay, that's the point. The other lever that's happening at the exact same time, which is so hard to measure, is the productivity in the market is moving faster and faster and faster. AI and robotics will merge. AI and robotics will create food for free. Energy prices will come to almost free. All of these things, meaning in today's dollar, the purchasing power of today's dollar will get exponentially more valuable. So with that many levers kind of happening at the same time to try to measure this through the debasing currency, it is one of them, and I don't want to say pet peeves because I know people do it, but when everybody takes their Bitcoin to the piece of paper, the debasing currency, to measure the wealth of the value of the Bitcoin, they're missing the point. And the free, just keep on, say it over and over, go say it 10 times before you go to sleep. The free market, the natural state of the free market is deflation. Keep saying it, keep saying it, keep saying it. What is the only thing that can measure the free market? The only thing that doesn't have counterparty risk to the existing system. It's Bitcoin. Now, that will measure the free market forever, as long as it stays decentralized and secure. And that's what's happening.
Sorry,
relative to that means most of the things in your life will be free.
And I know everybody's probably wondering about the altcoins. I did say I was going to talk about that. One thing I am looking at right here, for example, is just the simple 21 exponential on the Bitcoin dominance. So right back here, for example, you can see we started this decline and it was acting as resistance. And this was in May of 2017. Now, Bitcoin did hit an all-time high in December, but then you could see it dropped super low. And it was the beginning right here of 2018, where we really had that alt season, right? So you could see that we did have that crazy meme moment in 2022, 2023, but now the Bitcoin dominance has been rising. So now might be a good opportunity to maybe accumulate. There's always going to be some of these altcoins that are going to, do really well. Like I showed you Swan in the beginning. But, as far as a full-on alt season is concerned, you're probably going to want to wait for this to fall and break back below it to confirm that the Bitcoin dominance will start dropping. And then we'll start seeing some of that capital flow into the altcoins more, and then I think you'll have that alt season. Now, what I'm doing is I'm looking at some of these altcoins that have been hammered recently. One of them specifically that I'm still super bullish on is Trio. And I know you're probably looking at this chart and saying, how can I be bullish on this chart? Well, the reason that I'm bullish on this is because I know personally that these guys that are that got into these early the early venture stages, They do have tokens that are locked up, which I guess you could say they could dump, but none of this was actually from those investors because and I've spoke with the team, I did an interview with them, their investors have their tokens locked up for a very, very long time. Some of them even up to about a year. So this is all retail right here. And this area, I believe, is full-on seller exhaustion. And I believe leading into the end of the year, you're going to look back and probably look at Trio Ordinals to see this at, Ordinals bot at around $2. And I don't know, because I mean, when you look at the fully diluted valuation of this being at only $38 million, this is a $1 billion project, in my opinion, guys, based on what they're doing. Plus, if you hold this, they do tons of airdrops, so you would probably want to do that anyway. Yeah, so that being said, guys, just wanted to also mention that as well. This is just one that I'm looking to buy, especially down in this area. You know, you might have to, I don't think this is going to be an immediate pump. I think you're going to have to hold this for a little bit, but I think this is the accumulation range. So, you know, sometimes you got to play the boring game. But ultimately, that is it for me. Thank you so much for coming back to the channel. You guys rock. You're the reason that I make these videos. Hope you enjoyed this update. You know, my apologies that I haven't been able to make as many updates as usual. It's just like, it's a lot of the same content, especially when you're talking about the price of Bitcoin, where we're going. And I think we've kind of nailed sort of the, the theme right now, which has been mostly Bitcoin. You know, yeah, meme coins, hit or miss, but, everybody likes to talk about the winners, but nobody talks about the losers. And 99% of the meme coins have not done well. It's just the handful that you hear everybody talking about. So, of course, guys, be safe out there. Check out that Meta Signals. And again, if you do want to get involved with that LeveX promotion, guys, basically just sign up using the link below, drop your Twitter handle, and I will then do a random generated, we'll do it live next week, and we'll pick 5 winners. You'll get 1,000 each. And yeah, I think that's about it for this video. So if you guys do want to learn how to trade, you can check out these tutorials. They're basically all the same. If you look at Apex, if you look at Femex, all these exchanges are the same, give or take. I mean, they all basically function the same way. Maybe I'll make some updated ones, but that's it for me today, guys. Hope you're having a great week. Until next time, stay crypto, and of course, peace out.